All right, today we're going to jump into a really fascinating and, let's be honest, pretty deep sermon from 1979. It paints this huge, sweeping picture for all of humanity. And really, at its core, it's all about a journey. It's about a trip back to what the sermon calls our ideal hometown. So we're going to look at the big problem it talks about, the solution it offers, and, the actual roadmap it lays out to get there. So the whole thing kicks off with a really simple question, but one that goes way deeper than just, geography. It's not asking what town is on your birth certificate. It's really asking about the original home of the human spirit, a place that, this sermon argues, we've all kind of lost touch with. So what exactly is this ideal hometown? Well, the sermon basically describes it as humanity's original intended state. You can think of it like a spiritual Garden of Eden. The main idea here, the key word, is perfect harmony. A world where every single relationship between God and people, between people and other people, and even with nature itself, was just pure goodness and joy. The whole shebang. Okay, so if that was the starting point, that perfect home, where are we now? And that brings us right to the core problem that this sermon tackles, a massive, fundamental separation from that original, ideal state. The sermon points to one single moment where everything went sideways, the fall of the very first humans. And this wasn't just some, small historical blip. It's described as the actual starting point for all human suffering. It's what kicked off a long, tragic history that wasn't about harmony at all, but was all about constant division and conflict. And the fallout from this was, well, it was catastrophic. It touched every single level of existence. We're told God basically became a heartbroken parent. Humanity was just left to wander around, totally lost in despair. Even nature, the creation itself, started to reject this new fallen version of humanity. And the result? It's the world we see around us, right? A history that's just one story after another of people being divided against each other. So if the world is so broken, how in the world do we fix it? Well, the sermon argues that we're not going to find the answer in our usual worldly ideas of what's best. And this is where it gets really interesting. Let's see why. To explain this, the sermon uses this brilliant little analogy. Picture a guy from the heart of a big city, say New York, arguing with a guy who's lived his whole life way out in the quiet countryside. The city guy is all about the culture, the skyscrapers, the energy. The country guy loves the fresh air, the peace, the natural pace of life. And here's the kicker. Each one is absolutely convinced that his way is the best and that the other guy's life sounds like a living hell. And that right there illustrates the central point perfectly. On our own, our human ideals are just relative. They often completely contradict each other. There's just no common ground. So without some kind of higher, universal principle to measure against, we're all just stuck in this endless argument. And this leads to a really crucial insight. The sermon says that nothing, not a steak, not a loaf of bread, nothing has absolute value all by itself. Value is created in the relationship. It's in the harmony between the person giving and the person receiving. I mean, think about it. A simple piece of bread to someone who's starving, that's priceless. A giant fancy steak to someone who's already stuffed, it's worthless. It's all about the connection. So, if our own ideals and all the material things in the world don't hold the key, what does? This is where we get to the sermon's big, universal solution. And the text just comes right out and asks a question. It says, look, it's not money, it's not power, it's not even knowledge. What is the one thing that every single person, every family, every nation on earth is truly, deeply hungry for more than anything else? And the answer it gives is true love. Now, hold on, because this isn't just about some fuzzy, fleeting emotion. It's defined here as a fundamental principle of the universe, an unchanging universal force. And its most important quality is that it brings joy to both the person giving it and the person receiving it. That's how it creates that harmonized value we were just talking about. So here's the crucial link. This principle of true love is the missing ingredient. It's the essential thing that existed in that lost ideal hometown. It's this powerful force that goes beyond all the stuff that usually divides us. Culture, how we look, our social status, all of it. And that is what needs to be restored if we're ever going to heal the world. Okay, so the goal is to bring back this principle of true love. That sounds amazing, but it also sounds like a pretty massive job, right? So how do you actually do it? Well, the sermon doesn't just leave us hanging. It lays out a really practical path for this journey back home. The whole process is basically broken down into 3 big stages. Step 1,
a total about-face. That means a complete 180-degree turn away from a self-centered life. Step 2, a life of sacrifice. And that just means living for the good of others, not just for yourself. And step 3, expand. You got to keep expanding that circle of who you're living for. You start with yourself, then your family, then your nation, and you don't stop until you're aiming for the entire world.
And here's the paradox, the part that's kind of upside down from how we usually think. In this view, real greatness isn't found by climbing over other people to get to the top. It's found by going down to serve them. The more you serve, the higher you are ultimately lifted up. Now, you might be thinking, whoa, that sounds impossible for just one person to do. And that's a fair point. But the sermon introduces this absolutely key idea. God handles 95% of the heavy lifting, 95% of the work of restoration. But, and this is a huge but, humanity is responsible for a critical, non-negotiable 5%. It's our portion. That little bit of human effort and commitment is the catalyst that makes the other 95% even possible. So, let's say you do it. You turn your life around. You live for others. You put in your 5%. Then what? Where does this whole path actually lead? What's the final stop on this journey? The sermon uses this amazing metaphor here. It says your life is like launching a rocket. Your home, your community, that's the launching pad. Your life is the rocket itself. And it's not just aiming for, a slightly better life here on Earth. No, it's aimed at a cosmic target. And there it is. That's the bullseye. The ultimate goal of this entire epic journey of restoration is to have a final, permanent reunion in what the sermon calls the heart of God. Hitting that target means finally achieving that perfect, loving harmony that was lost way back at the very beginning. And so, we end up right back where we started, with a question. After digging into this incredible vision of a lost ideal, a world in conflict, and a path of sacrificial love, we're kind of left to wonder for ourselves. What would it really mean for you, for me, for the whole world, to finally find our way back to that original, ideal home?